what people really are fearing is volatility as opposed to making investments for maximizing long-term returns, in my opinion. There are 4,000 private equity firms with $3.7 trillion under management right now. And I don't care what anyone says, private equity firms, just like any other money management company, giving the money back is an unnatural act. That is not something work you take. It's too hard to get money under management to begin with. Saying like, gee, I don't have the best ideas for it, I'm not going to take it. That doesn't happen, right? Because you can't earn fees on money you give back, right? So it doesn't, people don't do that. And I'm not casting aspersions on, but there are realities. I run my own business. I understand. But I guess my own is a long-winded way of saying, just like I think what's been true for hedge funds is true for private equity, which is to say, if you can get in the right funds that have access to the best deals, it's one thing. But I'm just not sure there are 4,000 firms that can do that. My own view. I think public equity is actually more intriguing. Any ladies have any questions too? I want to make sure I'm. Ladies? Yes.
I am a lady.
Yeah.
So this is not related to financial services properly, but it's more about what you mentioned, that you're a Catholic person and that you found for yourself a meaning behind all the work that you have done. So what kind of advice would you give to us, like when we are basically starting our professional careers? Because like I'm also Catholic and like I'm gonna follow my passion, there is technology and everything, but I'm always thinking like if I'm being selfish or because like this like need of transcendence is more about like doing stuff for others. So it's kind of like how that work for you if you have like any suggestions.
Well, listen, I mean, there's probably, I'm sorry there's not a priest here that can, there really but, I'll tell you my opinion, which is to say that it's kind of an old-fashioned way of saying it a little bit, which is charity starts at home, which is to say that I think you're putting too much pressure on yourself if you're going to try to fix all the world's problems. Right? You can be a spiritual and good person and contribute a lot to society, really just by doing the right thing and raising a family. And I think the best thing, my own view, and one of the things when I go to Georgetown undergrad, I'd say, I go to Georgetown undergrad, they don't buy sandwiches, they stick me in a little room. I mean, it's unbelievable. You guys, you have 70 people there, it's great. But I think, one of the things that bothers me a little bit is I find on college campuses a lot of kind of what's considered being ethical has a lot to do with environmentalism. Or, not that there's anything wrong with environmentalism, but it almost seems to me like a new religion, a little bit. And it's, for some reason, it seems to, the focus isn't on other human beings. There's a different standard. And my own particular feeling is the best thing you can do to prevent somebody from being in poverty is to give them a job. So starting, in my opinion, it's much better than having government allocate resources. I think that's, so I don't know if that answers your question, but I would say I would, being a good, decent person that creates things, that treats people the right way, you're doing great. I think I think you're putting, if you're trying to put too much pressure on yourself. Also, I think it's important. You can have a business life, and then also what you find as you get older, there's another life that you have, which would be your family, and then also there's things that you do that are unrelated to either of those two things, which having a successful business career allows you, gives you the financial resources and time to do other things. Right, and to help out in other organizations. And I'm a member of a number of organizations in New York where we try to do good works and are trying to help other people. So again, I don't know if there's going to be a perfect job that's going to necessarily satisfy all the things you need, spiritually and professionally. But there's a lot of ways to kind of get there, I think, in terms of your life. And you can, I don't think you should feel squeamish about it if you're you're going out there to try to make a lot of money or something. You can square that up with the big man upstairs in other ways, I think. But. Yes, sir.
So can you identify one thing from Georgetown and one thing from Wharton that you would say was the most important thing to you?
Wow. I'm going to have to take that as a homework. No, it's a very thoughtful question. It deserves a thoughtful answer. And, I want to think quite a bit about it. I mean, I think my philosophy of life has been shaped by the two. I think the Wharton, I would say the Wharton experience is not necessarily what I learned from Wharton, but what I learned from being here. And this story is in the book, and I'm just taking it some time. But one of the things I learned about from Wharton, my experience here, is, as I said, life is a broken play. My football term, we would say, mayhem. Draw it up perfectly, X's and O's, and changes. I'll give you an example. One of my best friends here, and this is in the book, one of my best friends here is a fellow named Jim Bankall. And Jim desperately wanted to work at a consulting firm. And when I was here in 95 and 96, the only people that had greater pretensions than investment banks were consulting firms. Right? They asked you what your SAT scores were. There was this big intellectual pretension that you had to be some genius, all this other stuff. In any event, Jim got shut out. He was a very nice guy, but not a killer. Okay, he was just a nice person with memory, smart guy. But he's not like a eat stress for breakfast type of guy. And he basically got shut out and didn't have a job. And this was maybe like, I don't know, March, April. Starting to get late. And I remember all the rest of us, not in a mean way, we were being somewhat condescending to him. I go, Jim, let's figure it out. You'll get there. Don't worry about it. And in the back of our minds, like, man, I would want him. I don't, boy, I'm glad I have a job. Make a long story short, Jim, on his own accord, goes down to Arlington, Virginia, for an informational interview, and winds up getting a job at a company no one ever heard of, AOL. This was 96. By 1999, Jim was president of one of his operating companies. If you look him up, he's won a Grammy. He's started some of the biggest .com companies you can think of, internet companies you can think of. And again, it goes back to St. Teresa of Avila. Sometimes more tears were shed over answered prayers than unanswered ones. In some ways, he's happy that things worked out great for him. So I always think about that story because I think, again, we don't know. And I think business in particular, there's been a lot of studies that have shown, and I would say there's been nothing I've seen, and I was completely part of it, I can tell you. I got a job as an FX trader, which again, I thought it was this great thing, and I found myself in it after 3 or 4 months. Like, what am I doing here? I'm not good at this. The people don't like me. I'm not, it's not, what am I doing? And I had 2 years to figure out what I wanted to do while I was here. But it was an example of group think, of crowd behavior. Right? It was really, when you think about it, in the markets, that's things you want to fade that all the time. Right? You want to be selling, when everyone's thinking one way, you want to go the other way. You want to go, and here, there's a big part of that. Georgetown, I had to get back on that. But there were a lot of good lessons I learned there. And there were good lessons I learned at Wharton, too, from a more academic point of view, clearly. I think the nuts and bolts of finance and accounting, of course, critical, all the rest of it. But I'm trying to think of maybe more bigger. I'll get back to you.
Can I come back at that question from a little bit of a different angle and ask, so you come back now, say you come back in a few years, what would you like to see happening here, curriculum-wise, education-wise, that was not something that you observed when you were there
Yeah.
a few years ago?
Well, when I think about it, again, I like reading. I'm a big reader, okay? And the one thing and of course I had, again, going back to what did I expect when I came here and what happened? And for some reason, I had this idea, I would go to Wharton, and I would spend my days literally training to be John Rockefeller, or Cornelius Vanderbilt, or J.P. Morgan, or that's what I thought would happen here. I thought I would come out of here and essentially be a captain of industry. And what I found when I got here is that I didn't even hear those names once the entire time I was here. To this day, I can't tell you who Joseph Wharton is. I'm not proud of that, but I mean, there's no focus. I mean, obviously, he was an important person. I mean, the whole school named after him. I'm sure he was extraordinarily wealthy, did a lot of stuff. And so that's one thing I'd like to see. And I frankly, I think there's a tendency in academia, I think, not to, when it comes to issues of morality, or certainly issues of various economic systems, I think there's a strong tendency not to take sides. And the American economic system is obviously imperfect, like all human systems are imperfect. But there is a reason why America became what it is. You know, I think there's the rule of law, there's the depth of our financial markets, and I think some more of these conceptual things I'm talking about would be important in an American business school. And I'm sure a lot of the foreign students that come here, I'm sure maybe like me, they thought when they came here, they would, you know, American business is pretty unique, pretty special economic engine. And again, very imperfect, lots of problems, all the rest of it. But I think maybe more of a discussion of what's so great about America wouldn't be a bad idea. And you can do that from a historical standpoint as far as business is concerned. Yeah.
You touched on morality, and that's something I've been thinking about, particularly with this election, and with our country being capitalist. I'm not ultimate capitalist, but believe in helping the poor that need help. How is Wall Street responding to that, and how do you maintain morality or not maintain, but maintain morality in such a way that our capitalist society doesn't fall in on itself, which,
yeah.
I mean, the liberals, I think, are pulling morality out of everything, as you mentioned, even in your teaching, or your studies here, that the morality seems to get pushed out, and
Yeah.
that is an underlying system that I think makes us a great country, having morality underneath the fact that we're capitalists.
Yeah.
And how do you, I don't know, this is just something I've been
No,
thinking about.
it's a great question, and again, I give you mine. So I said Mystery Capital, Hernando Soto. Another book I would argue, is Free to Choose by Milton Friedman, which is to say, there are economic systems there's no economic system that's going to solve everybody's problems. And frankly, the ones that promise that they would were the most tyrannical, most horrible political systems you can come up with. So if you look at kind of a results-based view of what is economic progress, I would argue that the most free societies, even the most free societies economically, have provided the best for their own citizens. And it's not to say that you're avoiding people feeling pain or economic discomfort. But I think one of the things that worries me about this idea that capitalism is somehow evil is that people are looking at relative outcomes as opposed to absolute outcomes. Right? And frankly, relative outcomes is what we all do. Teddy Roosevelt said comparison is a thief of joy. You ever hear that? And there's nothing more true than that. I can tell you, living in Manhattan, working on Wall Street, it's a sickness. Okay, you'll never be happy. You just focus on what other people do, you'll never be happy. Now, if you're a politician, it's an extremely effective political tool. Because you can say to somebody, if you're not happy, or you're not earning what you should be, or so on and so forth, it's that person's fault. Or that person obviously is doing better because they had advantages you didn't have. And And frankly, I don't trust politicians to be the arbiters of that. I'd rather have markets do it and prices do it than have small groups of people do it, in my own opinion. Okay. So, again, I would focus on, I do think income inequality is a big issue, will be a big issue in this campaign. I think there are reasons for that. I would argue personally that it's due to too much government intervention as opposed to too little. So if you look at the velocity of money as an example, Fed quintupled the size of the balance sheet, 800 billion to 4.5 billion. The velocity of money, people want to look at now, it's gone straight down. Why is that? I'd say part of it's demand for credit gone down. Part of it, though, too, is that you have Dodd-Frank. Right? So Dodd-Frank is this financial monstrosity, financial regulatory monstrosity. Not to say that banks shouldn't be regulated, but again, you can't insulate people from pain or risk or all the rest of it. You can't ease aggressively. You can't step on the gas pedal in terms of monetary policy. You can't step on the brake.